began on a windless night, the kind of silence that pressed against the walls and made every sound echo louder than it should. The village of Huranga was sleeping under a blanket of mist when the drums started. Soft at first, dull, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat under the earth. Then louder, clearer, a sound too ancient to belong to the living. Asha woke up to it. She had been dreaming of fire, of shadows dancing in circles when the faint beat reached her ears. The drums seemed to be coming from the old road that led to the forest, the same road no one used after sunset. She froze on her bed, the thin sheet pulled to her chest. For a moment, she thought it was just the wind playing tricks. But then came the faint clang of brass anklets. Laughter, soft, distant, male and female together. Asha's skin prickled as she realized it was a barat, a wedding procession, moving slowly toward the village. But that was impossible. The last wedding procession that came through Burangar had been 22 years ago, and that one had ended in blood. The clock on Asha's wall read 12:02 a.m. She lived alone on the edge of the village, in a small weathered house her parents had left behind. Her nearest neighbor was almost a kilometer away. The villagers avoided her house because it stood beside the abandoned mansion where Raghav, the groom who died on his wedding night, once lived. The mansion had long since been swallowed by vines and silence, but tonight, something was awake there. The drums grew closer. Now, she could hear the rhythm clearly. Duck, 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 followed by the haunting metallic jingle of Sehnai music that seemed to float in the air. Asha stepped to her window and pulled aside the curtain. The mist outside was thick, milky white, and cold enough to bite through her skin. But through it, faint lights flickered, tiny flames moving together in a line. Lanterns, torches, and between them, dark shadows moving rhythmically, as if dancing. It was a wedding procession, and at the front was the groom. The figure on the horse wore an ancient shawani, torn at the shoulders, covered in dark stains. His turban drooped, the feather long gone, but his face and his pale, expressionless face was visible under the flickering torchlight. His skin looked stretched, paper thin. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, like dying embers. Asha's breath stopped. She knew that face. It was Raghav, the man who had died on his wedding night 2 decades ago, the man whose barat had vanished in the storm. The village elders used to whisper that Raghav's procession had never reached the bride's house. The horses were found near the river, the drums broken, the torches burnt out. Some said lightning had struck them. Others believed the bride's family had cursed him, but no one knew for sure. The bride herself had gone missing the next day. Asha was a child back then, barely 6 years old, yet she still remembered the chaos, the cries, the fear, the burning pyres. That memory had lived somewhere deep in her until tonight, when she saw the same lights returning, step by step, from the forest road. The torches moved closer. The Senai grew louder, though no one could be seen playing it. The rhythm was unnaturally perfect, mechanical, like something not performed by human hands. Asha backed away from the window, her heart pounding on her throat. But curiosity, stronger than fear, dragged her to the door. She opened it just a crack. Cold mist rolled into the room, swirling around her feet. Outside, the procession had stopped right in front of the old mansion. The groom on the horse turned his head slowly, unnaturally slowly, toward Asha's house. It was as if he had been waiting for her. The torches flickered violently. The mist seemed to pulse with every beat of the drum. For a moment, everything froze. And then, the entire procession turned toward her. The movement was slow, unified, almost rehearsed. 100 figures dressed in tattered wedding clothes, men, women, children, faces half hidden behind garlands of dead marigolds, started walking toward her. Not a sound escaped their lips. Only the echo of the drums followed them. Asha wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. The groom dismounted, the sound of his boots crunching the dry leaves echoing in the silence. He took one slow step after another, until the distance between them vanished into the fog. And then, everything went silent. The drums stopped, the torches flickered out, the signal cut off mid-note. The only sound left was Asha's trembling breath. The next morning, the villagers found her house door wide open. Inside, there was no sign of Asha. The only thing left was a faint trail of dried mud leading out toward the old mansion. The villagers gathered around, whispering nervously. None dared to enter. But later that evening, a boy fetching water near the forest claimed he saw something. He said he saw a wedding procession moving into the woods, torches glowing softly in the mist, and among them, a woman dressed in a red sari, walking beside the groom. Her face looked just like Asha's. That was the story people told for years in Burangar. Some believed Asha had gone insane and wandered into the forest, never to return. Others swore they heard drums echoing faintly from the old road every year on the same night. But what really happened was stranger than any of them imagined. The truth began 1 week earlier. Asha had moved into that house only 2 months ago. She was an artist, someone who loved painting abandoned places and forgotten architecture. She had found beauty in decay, rusted doors, broken roofs, peeling walls. To her, the mansion beside her house was perfect. Every day she would sketch it from her porch. The half-broken pillars, the black windows that seemed to watch her. But sometimes, while sketching, she felt something strange. The light inside her house would flicker, or the air would turn cold. Once, her pencil snapped for no reason, as if something unseen had grabbed it mid-stroke. One evening, as she painted under the setting sun, she noticed something odd. In one of the upper windows of the mansion, a shadow moved. Tall, straight, and still. Like someone standing and watching her. She had brushed it off as imagination. But that night, the dreams began. In her first dream, she saw a road lit by hundreds of lanterns. A wedding procession was passing, but all the faces were blurred. Only the groom's face was clear, pale, sharp, emotionless. He looked straight at her and whispered something she couldn't hear. When she woke, her pillow was damp with sweat. The air smelled faintly of burnt marigolds. The next night, she dreamt again. This time, she was standing inside the old mansion. The walls were covered with garlands, the air thick with the sound of drums. But all the lights were dim, flickering in unnatural rhythm. And in the center of the hall stood a man in a torn sherwani, holding a lantern. His face was clearer now, Raghav. She recognized him from the faded photograph she had once seen in the local archive. In the dream, he reached out his hand toward her, and behind him, hundreds of shadowy figures began to turn their heads, all at once, toward her. Asha had woken screaming, but the strangest part wasn't the dream. It was the dirt on her feet when she opened her eyes. Fresh, damp, and real. The following days were filled with signs. The clock stopped every night at 12:02 a.m. The faint echo of drums came from the woods, even when there was no wind. Once, she found marigold petals scattered across her doorstep, and on the wall near her bed, someone or something had drawn a faint symbol in red dust. It was the same pattern she had seen on the groom's turban in her dream. By the sixth night, she had stopped sleeping. She stayed awake, watching the window, waiting for the sound she knew would come. And when it did, and when the first faint drumbeat echoed across the fog, she didn't hide. She stepped outside. The torches appeared one by one. The air grew colder. Her breath fogged in front of her as the first figure emerged from the mist. The groom, just as she had dreamt him. But what she didn't realize was that the dream had not been a warning. It had been an invitation. The groom's procession was cursed. On the night of Raghav's wedding, a storm had struck the village. His barat had taken shelter in the forest. Lightning struck the trees, fire spread, and before dawn, all were dead. But the curse wasn't from the bride. It was from Raghav himself. Before he died, he had sworn that his wedding would not end in failure, that he would return for his bride, no matter how many lifetimes it took. Every 20 years at midnight, his barat returned, searching for a bride whose soul matched his lost one. And that year, it found Asha. When the villagers told her story later, they said that the night after her disappearance, strange things happened in the old mansion. Candles glowed behind the broken windows. The faint tune of a sehnai drifted through the air. And if anyone dared to look, they swore they saw two figures inside, one dressed in red, one in white, standing side by side, watching the road. The drums played softly for a few seconds, and then silence fell again. From that night onward, no one in Burangar spoke after midnight. The road to the forest was sealed with stones, the mansion left untouched. But on some nights, when the mist is heavy and the wind stops, those who live near the edge of the village still hear it. Dak, dak, dak. A faint echo of drums, and if you listen closely you can almost hear the Senai, playing a tune meant for a wedding that never ended, because the groom's procession never truly went away. It just waits for midnight, for the next bride. Approximately 1,960 words. Realistic